When I was a kid, I loved Pokemon cards. I didn't know why. Maybe it was the Pokemon that matched the Pokemon in my game. Maybe it was the foil cards that looked so shiny. Either way, I loved collecting Pokemon cards. Surprisingly, though, I didn't live in an area where many other people did. Most of the kids in my school really didn't like collecting trading cards that much. This sort of led me down a path of dropping trading cards until around the 7th or 8th grade when I started to really get into Yu Gi Oh!, both the show and the card game. I still loved playing Pokemon, but the card game really wasn't for me anymore since the people who played card games at the time really just played Yu Gi Oh! Even at that age, though, I still really didn't understand how to properly build decks or what was really good or bad. I had a ton of random cards, but wasn't much of a deck builder. We had the internet back then, but I'd really never really considered trying to look up anything online related to deck building back in 2002 or 2003. This all started to change when I got into high school, where I got way more competitive with everything I did. I always wanted to be the best, I always wanted to win. While I never had the funds to go to a ton of big tournaments or big events or anything like that, I always wanted to do well with what I had. Enter college. While I still had much of my Yu Gi Oh collection, I really wasn't playing much anymore. Most of my friends going into college mostly were just playing video games. Xbox 360 was huge. Gears of War and Halo 3 were all that really mattered. Sure, the topic would come up once in a while, but no one really decided to delve into trading cards. That was until spring of 2009. A few buddies I'd previously lived with and I were playing poker, drinking, and having a good time, and they brought up Magic the Gathering. While I had heard about it before, it wasn't ever something that interested me. Pokemon and Yu Gi Oh! Had their shows that really helped me connect with the games, whereas Magic was just that, a game. I never really connected with it. Man, was that about to change. They pulled out a bunch of the cards they had in their collections from the closet and we started playing. They taught me all that they knew. There's a lot of rules that were wrong though because they had, mostly just played on the high school, in the bus, or at home. They never really delved into the game like I used to with Yu Gi Oh! When I started to play the game, it was like a whole new world opened up for me. The interaction, the stack, the different colors, and what type of cards were in them, it was amazing. I remember going home that weekend and soaking up all the information I could about Magic. I watched videos, I learned cards, I was buying random cards online to try out in my own random decks I was putting together. My first real set was Zendikar, though I'd opened some packs of M10 and some things from the Alara block. My first mythic I opened was a Vampire Nocturnus, and what would you know, Zendikar came along with a slew of new vampires to make a deck with. Between the box of Zendikar I opened and buying some singles, I came back to my friend's place with a fully loaded mono black vampire deck ready to win, and win it did. I was starting to outplay them consistently, and this started to light a fire under them as well to get better and to build their own decks. Soon enough, we were going to FNMs and playing with some other people that would be some of our closest friends through my early 20s. While some of us were more competitive than others, we all started playing EDH. At the time, that's what it was called, and had the common format to play while we weren't playing standard. Many of us were driving an hour to a bigger, somewhat local store for new set releases to play in their pre-release events. I still vividly remember receiving both Sun Titan and Wormcoil Engine from M11 and Scars of Mirrodin for entry into these events. I started going to state championships and other big events like Star City Games events. This is where I could really let that competitive side shine. Magic the Gathering had everything I wanted in a card game. 2010 to 2015 were honestly the best 5 years of my life in regards to trading card games. I did start to have some difficulties going to these events towards the end of this as I ended up having my daughter and other life changes, but man, I loved when I was able to go out and play cards still. Now, towards the beginning of this time period, EDH turned into Commander. Wizards printed their first Commander Precon in 2011 and everyone loved them. The cards in the decks were honestly super janky by today's standards, but everyone had a blast. Some of those commanders are still played to this day, such as Kali of the Vast. Everyone knew Commander was a great format, but even then, Commander was meant to be casual, secondary format to the more competitive main formats like Standard, Modern, and Legacy. It was what you were to do on the side after scrubbing out of big events or, at the kitchen table when you had a friend group at home that wanted to play Magic. What we didn't know is how Wizards printing pre-con Commander decks was going to affect the entire game going forward. Return to Ravnica came out in late 2012, with Gatecrash and Dragon's Maze coming out shortly after in 2013. This entire block had about 20 legendary creatures in it amongst the three sets. Theros block in late 2013 had 26 legendary creatures. By the time we got to Guilds of Ravnica through War of the Spark, 32. Once we hit late 2019 into 2020, we were starting to get Commander precons printed alongside each set release, some with 2 decks, some with 5. Strixhaven, as a single set, had 22 legends with 5 precon decks printed with it. During this period of 2017 to 2020, a larger than normal amount of cards were starting to be banned from Standard. 5 in 2017, 4 in 2018, 5 in 2019, and a whopping 10 in 2020. To put this into perspective, from 2000 to 2016, there were only a total of 11 cards banned, 8 of which were from a single deck in original Mirrodin, Affinity, that was clearly problematic and was a mistake in design. Other than that, only 3 cards were banned in a 16-year window. As soon as Wizards started focusing more on Commander and printing more products each year, bans started to skyrocket. Getting out products was more important than playtesting. Commander was all that started to matter. Competitive play slowly began to die along with my drive to play Magic the Gathering in general. The unfortunate part of that, I was currently the TCG manager at a very large game store. My job was TCGs, and I was losing my passion for the one thing that kept me interested over the last decade of my life. Commander, though mostly Wizards, though actually mostly Hasbro, ruined one of my favorite hobbies. As I stated before, I'm a competitive player. Even when I played Commander, I wanted to win, even if I was using some janky cards or combos to do it. I wanted to use my Sensei's Divining Top with Bolas' Citadel and Aetherflux Reservoir to combo and win. I wanted to use my Sharoom the Hegemon with Disciple of the Vault and Sculpting Steel or Phyrexian Metamorph to combo. Hell, I wanted to combo with Myr Battlesphere. I like jank, but I like to win. The Commander player base, they didn't like that. They don't like when people would want to win, unless it was them, of course. The moment you do anything they considered strong, you're outed as the bad guy. The only popular format was beginning to get filled with soft players who acted like spending $30 on a card was absurd, and you were a tryhard if you owned one. Why own one? You can just proxy it. It's not like it's hurting anyone to proxy. Who cares if they're not supporting their LGS or the game they supposedly love? Oh shit, secret layer alert, secret layer alert. Buy this new special edition secret layer in the next 5 seconds or it's all gone forever. I was done. The gaming community lost the soul it once had. To call the amalgamation that it turned into Magic the Gathering is disrespectful to anyone who played the game for the previous 25 years. I was still in love with the idea of playing Magic. I tried to play some Modern, but even that format was getting destroyed by new products being released into that were Modern support, but really just was a pile of legendary cards for Commander. I even tried to get into Pauper a bit, but even that was getting ruined by comments coming out into some of the new products that were clearly overtuned. Man, I missed watching Star City Games events almost every weekend. I missed watching the Pro Tour and watching the best of the best compete at such a high level. I missed when Bolt Snap Bolt was a good play. I started looking through other TCGs that were out at the time. Nothing really caught my eye. I considered Flesh and Blood, but it was in the early days of Flesh and Blood where pricing was atrocious and getting your hand on the product was impossible. I considered going back to Yu-Gi-Oh, but that game is in an even bigger mess now than it was before I left. You'd have a better chance learning how to juggle 7 balls while walking a tightrope in 1 hour than getting into Yu-Gi-Oh as a new player nowadays. I started reverting back to my old video games, and I became less social because of it. One positive that came out of this is that I ended up meeting my girlfriend online through Final Fantasy XIV, but I had stopped talking to just about any friends that I had since most of them were friends of mine because of Magic. I did teach my girlfriend how to play Magic, and we played some Commander for a little bit, but I really started to feel the strain of playing the game I loved in the way I was and how it was affecting me. I wasn't having as much fun with it. I didn't like playing with most other people. Eventually, while going through some TCGs online, I saw Grand Archive. This was sometime during the beginning of when Mercurial Heart came out for Grand Archive. When I saw how the game was played, the resource system, how it had an effect stack like Magic, and how you could interact on other people's turn, I was instantly in love. I loved the RPG feeling of playing the type of champion you are. Getting to play as an assassin and being a sneaky backstab type where you can bleed people out or poison them. Being a warrior with big sword attacks or guardians with shields. How mages can empower their abilities to do big, power, overwhelming damage. Rangers can use guns or bows. Your champion can level up so it increases your max health, and it can be different based on what champion you are. It was like falling in love with Magic all over again, but with this new anime style card game. Sure, the art isn't as dark and brutal as some of the older Magic cards could be, but to be fair, neither was Magic anymore. I'm a fan of anime, so the art style didn't really bother me one bit. And in reality, most trading cards are just game pieces. A queen in chess does the same thing regardless of whether it looks like your standard queen chess piece or Princess Peach from the Mario chess set. All this is to say, I love Grand Archive. I love that it is a competitive game. Their girlfriend and I started out with the Sylvie and Tristan recollection decks when they weren't an arm and a leg to get, but then I started to build into different decks over time. By the time Distorted Reflections came out, I had around 5 decks, but this is also around the time I started hitting a real problem. We don't really have a large play group in the area to play the game. While there's a store within 30 minutes of us, we would only get about 2 to 3 other people coming on a consistent basis. While I absolutely love the game, it isn't as big in all areas like it is in California. I come from a background of wanting to be the best and going to big events. If I don't feel like I have a good number of people to play with, I feel like it's not worth the time. I don't really want to play with the same few people every week and feel like I'm not progressing as a player. Even when I first started playing Magic back in the day, most FNMs were 16 to 20 player events. If we can't even pull 8 people together, I don't know. It's hard. There's a store a little over an hour away that I'm sure we'd regularly get 8 to 10 people, but that's a bit of a drive with the crazy gas prices right now. Grand Archive is still a newer game. It just hit its 3-year anniversary, but it has a long way to go. It's still the game I want to play. It's a game I will advocate for more than any other TCG that's out right now. While it is still growing, it's still growing, but not in areas of the country that need the growth. We need more outreach. We need to have more players doing their part in trying to grow the game and get players into the game. If we don't do our part, then it's never going to work. Weebs of the Shore can only advertise so much, though where they advertise could probably use a little work. I also ask that any of you who used to love old competitive Magic try it out. There's so many good things about Weebs and what they're doing with the game. Remember the old player rewards in Magic? Well, guess what? Weebs of the Shore has that. There's an ELO system to show how well you're doing compared to other people. The more events you show up to and the better that you do, you'll get rewards every season. And big events? While they don't have as many as we used to back in the day in Magic, there are plenty of big events to go through throughout the year. Between store championships, regionals, nationals, and ascents, there's plenty of competition in Grand Archive to be had on your way to the World Championships. If you're interested in seeing some of it in action, I would watch the most recent nationals in Las Vegas that they had and they had the nationals at the Ascent going on in the same weekend. It took place May 8th through the 10th. Want chase cards? Grand Archive has some of the best looking chase cards with artist signatures and foils that aren't going to Pringle within 2 seconds, unlike Magic. Speaking of foils, there are actually meaningful pulls in this game. You don't just buy a collector box and get 300 foils to make your Pringle tower out of. Some cards that might only be $2 to $3 cards end up being $20 to $30 as foils. The Chase CSRs and CURs can be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars if you open them. Lastly, I'd like to talk briefly about Pantheon as a format in Grand Archive. For those of you who don't know that maybe previously played Grand Archive or looked into it in the past, Grand Archive now has the Pantheon format. It's somewhat similar to Commander, being a singleton format that's multiplayer. As someone who went through the time period of EDH/Commander's birth, growth, and dominance, this does worry me as a competitive player. We've had multiple content creators showing how they're falling off of the more competitive side of GA to play the more casual Pantheon. While I have absolutely no problems with Pantheon existing as a format, I would give a word of warning to weebs and those who are supporting the format going forward. I personally don't see myself playing Pantheon much. If I wanted to play that type of format, I'd literally just go back to Magic. There's more cards, more things you can do, and just more people playing in general. If we push Pantheon too much as a format to play and lose sight of our competitive scene that should be their main focus, the game is going to lose much of its identity and just become a worse version of Magic. While the player base isn't super small, most LGSs that do run GA won't be able to handle the pressure of competing formats for what people want to play during GA nights. I know that I, for one, wouldn't go to a store that's local if it's only running Pantheon ever, and if we're only getting 3 to 4 players, that's not helping any attendance. Again, the California stores might not end up with this issue, but most of the Midwest can hardly get enough players together. At the end of the day, regardless of what you're doing, make sure you're having fun with it. Grand Archive is a game that I absolutely love and would love to get more people into. I feel that there are so many Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh players who feel like they're just too invested into Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh and they don't want to give Grand Archive a try. They don't think they have enough capacity for other card games. But if you're not having the fun you used to with your game, why continue to play? Why not go for a change of pace? Try something new. Give Grand Archive a try. We just had our spoiler for the new set coming out in August, and it's called Dot Asphodel Paradise. If you've played Final Fantasy XIV during Dawn Trail, it gives a Solution 9 feeling with the people of Alexandria. Sort of a futuristic tech, but not quite in the cyberpunk way, more of a fantasy future tech. I'm excited to see what both the new version of Lorraine and what Dante do as champions. We also recently had the Sandbox program for Grand Archive come out, so if you'd like to try out the game online with anyone, there would be more than enough people willing to help teach you in the Grand Archive Discord server. I do know that having friends to play the game with will always be the best way to change over to a new game, so ask your friends if they want to try it out with you. Buy a couple of starter decks and check it out. And if you're from Wisconsin, feel free to let me know, and I'd be more than willing to help you get started myself. If anyone would be interested in a how to play video, please let me know, and I'd be more than willing to do that, though I do know that there are tons of them out on the internet right now. From Pokemon Trainer to Duelist to Planeswalker and now to a champion, it's been a long journey for me as a TCG player. Here's to hoping some of you can find joy and interest in whatever card games you're playing, and I hope to see you at some Grand Archive events soon.